They've been promised by successive governments of a home and an education. But today, hundreds of these children still live on these treacherous streets. Though the Gender Ministry launched the Operation Get Them Off the Streets for a Better Life last year, the ministry apparently says it is yet to begin the project. And as the world dedicates the day for the street child, MFA Nancy Jiradosi reports many of these children are still hopeful to see the hand of government and civil society in shaping their future. So we'll get you that first report, and then we'll have in the studio Edith Fasamani, a child rights campaigner, also speak to the issues as well.
Every day, more and more children are forced to leave home to fend for themselves on the street, with an estimated 90,000 reported to be on the streets of Accra, scavenging, begging, and hawking on the street to survive. These children are either chased from home by violence, death of a parent, and sometimes divorce. Some are very young. I have seen 10-year-olds on these dangerous streets, facing life all by themselves. These are children with dreams on the street. The Children's Act states that under no circumstance should a person below 15 be allowed to work or fend for himself. These children sleep and live on the streets. 15-year-old Akwesi Owusu has been living on the street for the past 3 years.
I was very little. My mom said she didn't want me. She sent me to an orphanage as she claimed I wasn't her child. My grandmother came for me and took me to school. Before my grandmother died, she asked other family members to come for me. But several weeks after her demise, no one showed up. So I came to Accra to look for an aunt, but never saw her. I knew nobody here. I found a few of my age mates on the streets, and I decided to stay.
Life on the street can be cruel, even for older people. Akwesi lives this reality every day. He looks a bit hardened by the life here. He lives on tokens from drivers. That's not enough to give him the kind of future he hopes to have, to build a career as a movie producer.
I wipe the windscreens of cars to get some money. Sometimes people threaten us with guns if we get close to their cars.
Life is really hard. On the street is your home. Finding a comfortable place to sleep at night is nothing more than a fancy you will never have. So Kwesi and his friends sleep on cardboards covered with plastic bags laid in front of shops in the most dangerous part of the city.
Sleeping on the streets is not an experience anybody should go through. We sometimes live several days without bathing.
When the sun rises and these children start their day, their hustle begins and ranging hunger pangs kicks in. At 7 a.m., some of these children wake up and walk several miles to the Christ the King parish to get the one thing that sustains them throughout the day: a meal provided by Father Campbell.
We started off in a small way over in the hall, in the parish hall, and looking after all those who walk the streets, those older people and those who have no work and those who sleep on the streets. And that's how we started. I started off just with 10, 15 people, and then just gradually more and more came, more and more young boys and some young girls, and those who were sleeping on the streets. They came there. Sometimes the parents came with their children. They'd come for food in the morning. So we started in that way and giving them a breakfast every morning.
We're taking control, but some of these problems just won't go.
these children having to drop out of school in their early stages, an art class is the only source of education at this point.
Some of them couldn't even have the confidence to paint or to do something, but now they are confident enough to do and to show their works after class. And some of them, even after eating, come for extra sheet to experiment from what they have learned.
These artworks you see here are done by these children who have been left without a home, an education and love. Without proper parental guidance, children like these are exposed to all manner of social vices which seriously threatens their development, from drug abuse, crime to dangerous street fights. At age 13, Akwesi became a drug addict.
I joined a group of friends who smoke weed, but I've stopped taking it after I almost lost my mind.
And as a means of survival. And on the street, people have labeled and categorized you in a certain way. How do you earn an income? You know, so you need to earn an income to buy food to eat, to pay for a place to sleep, because sometimes even when they get to sleep in the front of people's shops, they pay tokens. So you have to pay to use some washroom somewhere. You know, so it's first and foremost a survival thing that gets them involved in all kinds of criminal activities.
In November 2017, the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection launched the Operation Get Off the Streets for a Better Life. The exercise was meant to remove more than 300,000 people living on the streets across the country. But what has become of this?
The idea is that we started collecting data, and the data we have collected is about 4,893. But when we were collecting the data, what we were doing was that those who could be reintegrated, we'll send them back. We have gone to the street, we have talked to some street children, we have taken their data, but not everybody is aware.
So it's about identifying the roots of the problem and having the political will to deal with the problem, acknowledging the rights of the children. But if we continue on this cosmetic approach, we rather would worsen the situation.
They were born with dreams and aspirations, but without a home and education, this dream is bleak.
I want to be a doctor or an actor in future. I want to be a musician. To be a lawyer, journalist. And I want to become a president of Ghana.
None of these children want to be here. Every day of their life spent on these roads is a battle for survival. A battle they will never win unless you and I step in to support and save these dreams in the minds and hearts of the young ones who live on this treacherous street of Accra. Nancy Emefa Jadosi, JoyNews.
Who do we blame for this poverty? We only cry.
Emefa Nancy Jadosi for that dream on the streets piece. And we know that we all can relate to this because many of us buy chocolates, PK, everything we want on the streets from these street children. But the thing is, are they really needed on the street? Do we think we're doing right by them as a society? And that's why we've brought somebody who is a child rights campaigner, has been working with children for a number of years now. Edith Asemani is here. Good morning to you, Edith.
Good morning.
Great, and you're a child rights campaigner.
Yes.
And I know that you relate more with this issue. But how serious is this? How pervasive is this practice of having children on the street, so to speak?
I mean, two things make us see how serious it is. One is that the representative from the Ministry of Gender had mentioned the numbers, the figures they had already collected through data, and that is not even all, I think. The second bit is the fact that you and I move on the street, we drive, we walk, we see these children, but most of the times we see them as threats, we see them as the offenders rather than as the victims. So we do see these things, and even if there are merely 5 children on the street, for me it's such a big deal. For us to go past 1,000, go past 2,000, go past 3,000 and 4,000, it's such a big deal.
As a child rights campaigner, what does it tell you? That we have failed as a society, we have failed as government, as a country?
Exactly. I think you just summarized it, and the failure doesn't just come from government, it doesn't just come from us, it comes from every single stakeholder. Whoever walks on the streets and sees them and does nothing, has failed these children. But we also know that government has a lion's share of the responsibilities when we are looking at some of these issues. We know that there are acts and policies in place. There's the Children's Act, for instance, Children's Act 560, which talks about ensuring.
There is.
Yes, and which talks about, in fact, section 1 of the Children's Act talks about looking at the best interest of the child. Obviously, being on the street is not in the best interest of the child, and I think that one other thing we should look at is how constantly or gradually urbanization has led to a breakdown of traditional family systems. So because I'm here and I'm looking at Tracy's story, and I'm thinking, where are his external family members? Is there no one to take care of a child, for instance, if the mother says she doesn't want him anymore? So if we are gradually letting go of our traditional family system, so much so that when a child is in need, the best thing a child has to do is to go on the streets and survive, I think it is wrong, and we have all failed. And
I know Chrissy's story is touching, but which is the most touching story you've ever seen working in this area?
I think that one of the sectors of streetism are those people we call Kaya. And for me, because they migrate to survive, they migrate to find.
They actually migrate to nowhere. They don't know where they're coming.
Exactly. Sometimes they just follow their friends, and their friends go back and tell them, Accra is good. We get 5 CDs a day. Kumasi is good. We get 10 CDs a day. You should come. Let's make some money and go get married, or let's make some money and go continue our education. And I think those situations are even more touching. For a lady to leave her home, which is more than 12 hours, drive away, get on the streets, and eventually get raped, defiled. But people, she doesn't know. And the funny thing, the funny twist about Kaya that even makes it more emotional is that they get to Accra and they feel that there's a need to look for this one guy, because I spoke to one of them some time ago. They usually look for people they call custodians, so they'll take care of them so that other guys will not just come and sleep with them while they are sleeping on the street. There's the risk of pregnancy, there's the risk of HIV, there's the risk of sexually transmitted infections, and there's the risk of them producing even more street children, and so this makes the whole situation pathetic, and we really need to do something.
Well, when we're talking about how we feel as a society, etc., and I know the ministry may be doing something, they think is enough, but how have we been able to coordinate the various sectoral points in the society in such a way that the ministry, let's say, is not working in isolation, the church is not working in isolation, the household are also not working in isolation, so that we treat it as a coordinated approach?
I agree with you. Coordination is the best way to go. I don't know what the ministry has done about that so far. However, I know what the ministry could do to coordinate, like you have said. I think one of the ways they could do that is, you just spoke to Cecilia, there's a non-state actors. There are a whole bunch of NGOs that are under the non-state actors. There's a whole bunch of NGOs that are under the Ghana Civil Society platform for the Sustainable Development Goals. All of these different ideas to help get these children off the streets, because some of them have started. We saw Father Campbell and what he's doing already. Can't we get in touch with him? Can't we get in touch with other people? What strategies work? Apart from teaching them arts, is there a way of expanding, getting more volunteers, young people on board to teach them other things that the streets children would be interested in, so that dreams are not cut short because not all of them, for instance, are interested in art. I'm sure some people are interested in other things, but unfortunately they are a bit restricted, you know. So let's find, the ministry must find a way of getting to these people, that's all. And then let's learn the best practices, strategies, new ways to solve this problem differently.
If you read literature, they keep telling you, and this has been tried and tested across various sections of the globe, education remains key to getting people out of poverty.
Exactly.
How do we as a country want to get people out of poverty on the streets through education? How can we do that, do you think?
First of all, education is not just formal, because people have the tendency to think that when we talk education, we are talking formal education. I think that we can, if we want to. Statistics have proven that Africa currently has more than 50% of its population being young, and it's most likely never going to happen again.
Actually,
so this
is under 50.
Under 50.
Yeah.
We
have the youngest population across the globe.
Exactly. You know, and we can't let this window of hope go, because the moment we miss the opportunity of investing in the education, for instance, of all of these young people, then we are missing the opportunity of creating a quality group of young people in the next 10, 15, 20 years who are also going to give birth to children and ensure that they also get educated. Unfortunately, though, education is not necessarily the breaker, because we also know that there are a lot of people who are educated but are unemployed. So how do we ensure that we don't just educate young people, but you know, we educate them so much so that by the time they get out of school, they have the idea, they have thoughts of starting their own businesses, for instance. They have thoughts of starting initiatives which also employ hundreds other young people. So our education should be useful. And government, I do not agree when we talk about government not having monies and budgets and resources to invest, because I think it's an issue of priority. Government always gets money to do other things.
Yeah.
So how do we ensure that we make education, health, and very important aspect of society our priority, so that, for instance, when the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection gets up and develops its, you know, work plan, what are the activities in there? Are there activities that prioritize truly things that protect the vulnerable? Are there activities that protect children? Are there things that check the development of women and girls? You know, so we need to be more strategic in our approach. So if we have 50 CDs, how do we ensure that our 50 CDs goes into quality activities and produce quality results, rather than having 50 CDs that we are just spreading everywhere and not really getting any results?
Or buying four-wheel drive, not prioritizing them.
I don't even want to talk about that.
No, I know that when we go there, they say that we're doing politics. So sometimes we try to shy away from the issues, but the truth is the truth, right?
Exactly.
But what can we do in bits in making sure that we also tend to conscientize the young people on the street that you can make a living, but try not to make a living on the streets? And then what you do, you should have a conscious effort of trying to self-improve.
I think you've already started. All those who listen to you now at least got that advice, that suggestion. We can definitely use the media. It's one great tool to reach so many people, especially young people. Apart from using media, and also, I mean, in terms of using media, let's also find ways of properly using social media, because unfortunately when people talk about social media, all they think about is the negativity of how negatively.
So what are we going to use social media for? Because those on the street, I don't think they're very active on social media.
Of course not, maybe, but they may be, and they also may not be. But you're also looking at two targets. You are looking at the people who can support the young people on the streets, and then you are looking at the young people themselves. So for instance, I have been an advocate since I was 11. I have been
you've loved young people since you were 11.
Yes,
that's great. You're young too, so I keep wondering.
Exactly. And myself, I was working in a factory at some point just to make ends meet. You know, I could have been on the street. So I get off the street, I managed to survive by God's grace. How do I ensure that I help other people who were or are like me? So you are using social media to reach out to people like me. How do we put resources and ideas together to help fellow young people. So I think that we could use the media. The other thing I think we could do to ensure that young people understand that they do not need to depend on the streets or do not need to make a survival on the streets, is to make them trust the system. If the system cannot be trusted, I don't think anyone would, because if a young person knows, for instance, that there's a Department of Social Welfare that cares for me, there's a Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection that really cares for me through its decentralized processes, and I know where to go when I need help, I don't think that young people will go on the streets and start stealing, you know, and trying to make a living. I think we have made things this way, and like I said, we probably should go back to our traditional family systems, because if we had that, then people would have other options of survival. If Edith gets thrown out of the house by her mother, then she knows that she can go to her auntie and still get good care from her auntie or her uncle. So I think those are the things we should look at. In the Akan adage, they say sankofa is not a bad thing. I'm not very good with the tree language. So. Yeah,
don't worry. I
so there's nothing.
But we'll be opening the phone lines for just about 5 minutes for us to get some insight. So the numbers will be on the screen very soon. We want you, if you relate with the issues of children who live on the street, what can we do as a country to improve on their lots? Many of you could call from Tamale, just a big cities, because we know that that's where we find many people living on the streets. And the numbers will be on your screens very soon. 0302211691 or 2. Again, the numbers 0302211691 or 2. So let us hear from you. We're talking about children living on the streets and surviving on just what they earn. But the thing is that we need to provide some sustainable means of ensuring that they live good livelihoods. And my sweet sister has been here helping us with the conversations. Now, how do we need to do this? Because now Ghana is growing. The towns are now becoming bigger into cities. We're not planning them well. Times are hard. Households are breaking up, so we have a lot more people who don't have dependents.
Let's start holding people accountable. You know, I studied journalism, and I thought that the reason I went into it was that I thought that it could greatly help in ensuring that development, you know, is. Unfortunately, sometimes we do not use what we have to get what we need, and I think that journalism is one of the best ways that we would be able to do this. When you, for instance, invite someone from the ministry to sit here, make sure that you follow up on what they said and make sure that they are done. When they don't do them, bring them back and ask them questions.
Well, we have Solomon Adam. Solomon Adam, you're calling from Tamale. Good morning to you, Solo.
Good morning.
Please, you can relate to this, can't you?
Yes.
Tell me your thoughts this morning.
In fact, I am so touched seeing the children on the street. It made me so sad, more or less. But what I just want to put across is that if TV, JoyNews can set up a fund so that we get people to contribute towards taking these people off the street, I think it will do us a lot of good, because Ghana, you know, we are noted for good talk, but the action is always misplaced. These people need a better life. They need to be out of the street. So I want to suggest that if an account can be open, people who really see the need to get these people off. You know, if we want a better society tomorrow, then we need to look at this so that we can have a free society, that any time at all everybody can move freely without any hesitation or fear. Okay. But if we leave this going on, then Ghana, I don't know what would happen in the next years to come.
Well, good contribution there from Solomon Adam. We're calling us from Tamale. And just close by, same in Tamale is Ahmed Salim. He's on the other line. Good morning to you, Ahmed. Ahmed, good morning.
Good morning, Roland.
Please, your contribution on the subject of us having more children on the street, and more of them are getting on the street again.
Yeah, sometimes when you get onto the road, your workplace, you see them, you just ask yourself, where are these children from? Where are they coming from? What are they doing there? Do they take their lives for granted, or they have something in mind? You can't
Ahmed,
hello?
How do you think as a society, as government, as a people, as churches, as mosques, etc., we failed?
Yeah, coming to talk about religious bodies, we failed because I'm not well versed in the religious book, but what I know is that parents are supposed to take good care of their ward. Society itself has its responsibilities on children, and government in particular to have responsibilities as a body. So, but then I don't know the guest with you. There's this group too called GACA, Ghanaians Against Child Abuse. Then there's one too called Remove Child Beggars on the Street. I don't know if they can go or get to these people so that they will bring their heads together. Then they find a very good way forward, because it's disheartening that sometimes.
Great contribution there from Ahmed Salim. Now let's go to Ashaiman, and from the Newtown section of the town we have Stephen Amati. Good morning to you, Mr. Amati.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Roland.
Yeah, good morning, Stephen. What's up?
Yes.
Share your mind. Share your mind with me. I know Ashaiman very well. I grew up there, so I knew that having children in the streets.
Previously, you live nearby me.
Yes. Ashaiman Newtown is where I grew up. Yes.
Yes. I am surprised why every iota thing that happened in this country, a probe must be set up. There recently it was 56 people who went to Australia without who are not journalists at all. A probe must be set. Here, somebody's child have died. A probe must be set. I can't understand. After this happened in this country, a probe must be set. I can't understand it. Because this is a simple issue. This hospital is a fee-paying hospital. A woman is there whose child have got dead. And a problem be said, if you need some person, why don't go to people involved and ask them questions?
Well, your point has been made, Mr. Mate. Steve, have a great morning. And we have Charles Opoku. Charles Opoku is calling from the Bonafri region town of Drobo. Good morning to you, Charles.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
We have a lot of towns growing into so-called cities now. We have a lot more children on the streets, and it's what we're focusing on. What's your thoughts?
I think the system has failed everything altogether, because looking at something like free SHS, free school feeding, and then giving us sandals and slippers to school children. You see, some of us can afford for all these things, and for that matter, all these things that is given to people free should be given to these students, instead of giving it to people who can pay for the school fees of their wards, can afford their feeding, can afford their school uniform. And so all these free things that is given generally to all should be rather concentrated on these street children. That would be far better.
Well, I get your points there, Drobo. From Charles from Drobo. And now let's go to Tamale, and Jibril is calling from Tamale. Mohammed Jibril, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Do you have a lot of children on the street of Tamale?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a national canker. But the issue, the idea of this streetism is that, first of all, these are some of the things as media we should be reporting, drumming into the ears of our leaders. But then if we abandon this and then we go on following the politicians, cutting sword here and there, clapping for them, and I'm not sure this can solve the problem. The media should concentrate on this particular canker. At least when our leadership is continuous. So if this generation will not establish a better, a better resource for them, by the end of the day, after this particular leadership is weighed off, what would the next generation look like?
Wow.
So what I think is that at least the media should concentrate on reporting some of these issues let's leave the politicians to be, and then let's concentrate on the next generation, so that at least if this generation fail us, the next generation shouldn't fail us again.
Well, Mohammed.
Yeah.
Decibel.
Nah.
Oh, thank you very much, and thanks for calling through. And that's our last caller, Mohammed Jibril from Tamale. But we have to conclude, won't you say? We talk a lot. Exactly. Media, civil society, and even those who are affected, we do nothing. Do you think that we can ever find, because we always say even in America there are poor people, that's our excuse all the time. Can we ever reduce the numbers of people who live on the street, especially children who would have been better in school, finding better education in some vocational training somewhere, or learning a trade or something, just making something good of their lives?
I think we can if we want to. I think it's as simple as that. If
so for you, it's all about the will.
It's all about the will. And once we have the will, we'll find a way. It's the same in every sector, and it is important that every single sector of society realizes that there's something they can do. Religious groups have things they should do. They should focus on helping the vulnerable in the churches rather than extorting the money. The politicians should focus on ensuring, the ministers, the directors of departments, the people who know that they have a role to play in this, should focus on ensuring that the work plans, the activities in the papers, the policies work, so that the little budget we have as a country, push it there and stop pushing it into the emoluments. You understand? I think that's when we do all of those things that we know that stuff will work.
Well, which church do you attend?
I'm a Presbyterian.
You're safe.
I'm
safe. It's okay. I thought one of those company churches. I'll say your chief executive wouldn't have been happy with you. Dalbe, Edith Asamani is a child rights campaigner, and she has been greatly interested in the issue of children living on the street, etc. And that's why we brought her here to come and help us with the conversation. Many of you also have called through. We're so happy for you.